So hey y'all, I'm back with another video. So tonight's video is yet again another Chioma Chats video podcast edition. So by the title, we're going to be talking about Tory Lanez being found guilty in the Meg Thee Stallion trial. This story has so many ups and downs and twists and turns. I mean, literally an emotional roller coaster. This all started 2.5 years ago in the summer of 2020 when Megan Thee Stallion alleged that Tory Lanez shot her in the foot after a drunken night that led to arrest, violence, hospital visits, lies, and so much more. Meg Thee Stallion and her ex-best friend Kelsey were at Kylie Jenner's house for a get-together, and Tory Lanez arrived. All were intoxicated and drinking, and the night just didn't end well. Upon leaving the party, Meg and Kelsey left first, Megan returned, and then came out with Tory, and the three left together. According to the story, this is where Kelsey learned about Meg being intimate with Tory behind her back. And I feel like this played a very integral part in the story because Kelsey claims that Meg consistently hooked up with guys who she was dating or talking to after her and behind her. And with this repetition of friendship, mistrust, and betrayal, it definitely accelerated the emotions that night. To make matters worse, Tory Lanez just so happens to be one of the guys that Meg was backdooring Kelsey with. Now, I'm not too clear on how the conversation came about because it doesn't make sense to me that Tory Lanez would just outright tell on himself in that moment. However, when liquor is involved, there's this thing called liquid courage. And I learned this in college, like within the first month of college. A lot of people get liquor in their system and they start to sing like a canary and having this very bold and courageous tenacity to say and do anything. That's what liquid courage is. It's almost like there's a whole different person. So after this, now all three parties are aware of what's going on. Meg is outed. Tory is being blamed for clearly messing with two friends, and Kelsey is blindsided by this news. The result was the argument, a scuffle, fighting, broken nails, jewelry on the floor, bikini bra straps being popped, and of course, a gun going off, striking Meg Thee Stallion. This entire case has literally been a whirlwind because there are so many moving pieces to consider, and there's been a lot of doubts on the case. I mean, when I made my initial video 2.5 years ago, I stood with Meg. I literally said that I just don't think it would make sense for her to lie about something of this magnitude. I never once doubted that she was shot because what type of benefit would Meg have gotten for lying about being shot? I think the circumstances surrounding how she ended up being shot definitely make her look like a bad person, but the outcome of the situation never gave me the vibe of it being a tall tale. So it hit the news that after 2 years since this incident, and after I believe a 2-week-long trial, Tory Lanez was found guilty on 3 felony charges. The internet is in complete shambles, and I knew that this would be the outcome in regards to people's outrage and outcry of the verdict, both in favor and not in favor. I really actually thought that Tory would get off because there was just so many doubts about the validity of everybody's story. However, it is now in black and white and in the court of the law that Daystar Peterson is guilty as charged. With the complexity of this situation, there is just no way I can break this video down into any talking points. So I'm just going to give an overall briefing of what happened, my thoughts, my opinions, and what people are saying on social media to give a comprehensive outlook to this entire situation. So without further ado, let's get right into this video. So I want to reference the article written by the New York Times. It's titled, Tory Lanez found guilty of shooting Megan Thee Stallion. It says, Mr. Lanez, a Canadian rapper, fired at the Houston hip-hop star after an argument in 2020. The matter became the subject of speculation and gossip on social media and in songs. Los Angeles. A Los Angeles jury on Friday found Daystar Peterson, the Canadian rapper better known as Tory Lanez, guilty of shooting a fellow artist, Megan Thee Stallion, in both of her feet following an argument about their romantic entanglements and respective careers in the summer of 2020. Mr. Lanez, 30, was convicted of 3 felony counts: assault with a semi-automatic handgun, carrying a loaded, unregistered firearm in a vehicle, and discharging a firearm with gross negligence. He faces more than 20 years in prison and could be deported. Jurors reached a verdict after about 7 hours of deliberation across 2 days, following a trial that lasted nearly 2 weeks. Mr. Lanez, who had been free on bail during the trial following a period of house arrest, was immediately taken into custody. Sentencing was scheduled for January 27th. Megan Thee Stallion was not present in court. As the verdict was read, Mr. Lanez appeared motionless and stared straight ahead until his father stood up and began shouting at the judge and prosecutors. God will judge you, he said, as bailiffs moved to block his path. Alex Spiro, a lawyer for Megan Thee Stallion, said in a statement, the jury got it right. I'm thankful there is justice for Meg. The case, which played out as both a tawdry tabloid narrative and a weighty referendum on the treatment of Black women in hip-hop and beyond, was closely watched for both its famous characters and what is said about the recent adjudication of alleged abuse by notable men such as Johnny Depp and Harvey Weinstein, in court and in public. Mr. Lanez, though not a household name before the case, has seen his celebrity profile rise since the shooting, earning explicit and implied support from various corners of the hip-hop universe, including influential blogs, social media accounts, and the rappers turned talking heads 50 Cent and Joe Budden. In court, Mr. Lanez's defense had raised the possibility of another shooter, a friend of Megan Thee Stallion's, who was also involved in the argument, which occurred on the way home from a gathering at the home of reality star and beauty mogul Kylie Jenner. But Megan Thee Stallion, who testified in the case, identified Mr. Lanez as her assailant, tearfully recounting how he had shouted "dance" and a sexist slur at her before firing several times from the passenger seat of a sport utility vehicle. She said Mr. Lanez then apologized and offered her and the friend, Kelsey Harris, $1 million each to keep quiet about what had occurred. In his closing argument, Alexander Bott, a deputy district attorney, said that Mr. Lanez had been pushed to a breaking point when Megan Thee Stallion deemed his artistic stature nothing that she had been reluctant to come forward after the traumatic event. Megan did find the courage to come and tell you what the defendant did to her, Mr. Bott told jurors. Was Megan telling the truth? I think everyone in the courtroom knows the answer to that question. The lawyer added of Mr. Lanez, hold him accountable for shooting the victim for nothing more than a bruised ego. Mr. Lanez's defense team argued that the two women were fighting that night over the male rapper, implying that Ms. Harris might have been motivated to shoot her friend out of jealousy when she learned that Mr. Lanez and Megan Thee Stallion had been intimate behind her back. George, I don't know his last name, a lawyer for Mr. Lanez, said that the case was about jealousy and a sexual relationship, calling the prosecution's case full of holes and speculation. Megan Thee Stallion lied about everything in this case, he told jurors. Some eyewitnesses provided muddled accounts of the shooting at trial, though most testified to seeing Mr. Lanez with a gun. Ms. Harris, who was offered immunity in exchange for her testimony, denied pulling the trigger or receiving hush money from Mr. Lanez, the Los Angeles Times reported. But on the stand, she also backtracked on her previous statements to the police that identified Mr. Lanez as the shooter, testifying that amid the drunken scuffle, she did not see who shot Meg Thee Stallion. Prosecutors then received the judge's permission to play Mrs. Harris' entire 80-minute interview with detectives from September in which she implicated Mr. Lanez. They also presented a text message Ms. Harris sent to Meg Thee Stallion's bodyguard that night of the shooting, writing, "Help," and "Tory shot Meg." In response to her conflicting accounts, Ms. Harris said that she could not remember what she had said previously and had not been entirely truthful with prosecutors in the past. Another eyewitness who saw the encounter from the window of a nearby home said that he observed a violent, chaotic fight and that the first flashes he initially believed were fireworks, noting that he never saw a gun, came from a woman. But the witness added that he then saw a short man, believed to be Mr. Lanez, firing everywhere, 4 or 5 times, Rolling Stone reported. Experts testified that gunshot residue was found on both Mr. Lanez and Ms. Harris, who were in close proximity, though DNA evidence tying Mr. Lanez to the weapon was inconclusive. The police did not collect a DNA sample from Ms. Harris. Ahead of the trial, the case had played out on social media, gossip sites, and in music released by both rappers. Megan Thee Stallion, who had collaborated with Beyonce shortly before the shooting and went on to win 3 Grammy Awards, including Best New Artist in 2021, was initially circumspect about what had occurred. Look what coming forward has done to her life, her reputation, and her career, Mr. Bott, the deputy district attorney, said in his closing remarks, raising his voice at times for emphasis. Do you think she wants to be here? In her testimony, the rapper said that she did not tell police officers that she had been shot that night in July, claiming instead that she had stepped on glass because tensions between Black people and law enforcement were high after the murder of George Floyd. I didn't want to see anybody die, she said. I didn't want to die. She also was worried about her career. I didn't want to talk to the officers because I didn't want to be a snitch, the rapper added. Snitching is frowned upon in the hip-hop community, which she identified as a boys' club. In a statement after the verdict, George Gasson, the Los Angeles district attorney, highlighted what he called Megan Thee Stallion's bravery in court. You showed incredible courage and vulnerability with your testimony, despite repeated and grotesque attacks that you did not deserve, he said. Women, especially Black women, are afraid to report crimes like assault and sexual violence because they are too often not believed. At first, Mr. Lanez was arrested and charged with only concealing a firearm in the vehicle. But in the days and weeks that followed, Megan Thee Stallion revealed online and in interview with a detective that she had been shot, eventually naming Mr. Lanez as her assailant. That October, the Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office charged Mr. Lanez with assault. Still, for years, years since, some skeptics and conspiracy theorists have questioned whether Megan Thee Stallion was shot at all. At trial, a surgeon testified to removing bullet fragments from both of the rapper's feet, with X-ray presented in court showing tiny fragments that remained. Mr. Lanez, who opted not to testify in his own defense, has not detailed his version of events, though he released an album barely 2 months after the encounter in which he denied shooting Megan Thee Stallion, focusing instead on their personal relationship. "We both know what happened that night and what I did, but it ain't what they saying," he rapped. Meg Thee Stallion later responded in her own track titled Shots Fired, in which she seemed to recount what led to the shooting. He talking about his followers, dollars, she raps, adding, "I told him, you're not popping, you just on the remix," as well as its aftermath. "You offered M's not to talk, I guess that made my friend excited, now y'all in cahoots." On the stand, Meg Thee Stallion said that she had initially lied about the extent of her personal involvement with Mr. Lanez, including in a television interview with Gayle King, because it was quote-unquote disgusting, she said. "How could I share my body with someone who could shoot me?" It ends with, "Even as her career skyrocketed, the assault had caused her to lose my confidence, lose my friends, lose myself," she said in court. "I wish he had just shot and killed me." So this article pretty much breaks down the entire case in layman's terms and in a way that is easy to kind of refresh everyone's memory as to how we got here. Now, here's where my opinion comes in. I think that the only people that know exactly what happened that night were the 4 people that were there: Megan, Kelsey, Tory, and the driver. Those are the only 4. Even with the witnesses had an impartial viewpoint of the entire situation, being that one witness was at a distance and could only assume what he was seeing. Not to say that it is invaluable to say it's his point of view, but he can't necessarily determine a motive behind the actions that he witnessed. But I do believe that it's crazy how the witness who was called upon by Tory's team basically implicated him in the entire trial. I mean, alleging that Tory Lanez recklessly shot a gun 4 to 5 times led the jury and pretty much everyone in the courtroom to believe that Megan Thee Stallion was telling the truth. Tory is a felon. He had a gun and it wasn't registered, and it got him in big trouble. For that reason, I think all 3 parties should have been able to testify with clear and conscious testimony. And what I mean by clear and conscious testimony is that it's interesting to me that Meg was the only one that gave a testimony that was clear and conscious and accountable. She's the only one that gave a testimony that wasn't motivated by anything else other than the outcome that she felt that she deserved. People question why did Meg lie about being sexual with Tory, and although I do agree in questioning why she lied, her testimony clarified and also forced her to be accountable for that lie. And I do think that it created doubt when she chose to do a public interview with Gayle King and deny all sexual relations with Tory, because you can be a Meg fan but know that that was such a dumb thing to do and dumb thing to say. Better yet, a dumb decision for her to even do that interview with Gayle King. I don't think it served her any purpose, and yeah, she did get the verdict and the outcome she wanted, but that interview alone created so much doubt for her that she was better off saying nothing. However, I will give her credit for owning up to that lie, explaining why she lied, and being convincing enough for people to reason with the lie. Because to be honest, I do understand why she lied about being with him. I just don't understand why she went to the public interview to express this lie when she really did not have to. Any girl can understand why you wouldn't want to claim a body, especially of someone who violently attacked you. I mean, she would have had empathy from any female juror because, of course, it's wrong to withhold being truthful about who you have slept with. But at the same time, is it really when you really don't have to tell anybody, and on top of that, nobody asks? She didn't go into the Gayle King interview not knowing the questions she was going to be asked, and that to me is why I think it was just a dumb decision. But she got up on the stand in a court of law, which was the only thing that mattered, and was under oath and told the truth about it, which I think helped her in her case. I think this made Meg look like she wanted to be truthful about all of the events and have the jury lean more on her side. Now, Kelsey's testimony to me hurt her at the case, because to require immunity from any wrongdoing just for your testimony is crazy to me. I understand that she's been hurt by Megan, and I think Kelsey was really a victim as well in the situation. Maybe not the case, but the overall situation, because her friend did her bad, like real bad. And I would have punched my friend dead in her shit too if I was Kelsey. Her ex-friend Meg consistently slept with men that she was dating, and I think that does speak to Meg's character because she's untrustworthy when it comes to that. But the connotation of Kelsey's testimony gives doubtful undertones about the validity to what she was saying. A lot of this evidence pointed towards Kelsey being the shooter. I mean, she had a motive, she was also intoxicated just like everyone else, and she was witness to actually be attacking Meg. The witness said that they were pretty much jumping Meg. However, let's not forget that Tory Lanez even said that Kelsey didn't shoot Meg. So by his account, there was really one other person that could have done this, which was Tory Lanez. And I'm not sure what Kelsey was trying to hide herself from in regards to asking for immunity to not be convicted of any wrongdoings. I mean, to me, it sounds like you did it, Kelsey. To everyone, it sounds like she did it. Nobody is going to ask for immunity when they're not hiding something, because pleading the fifth in order to not answer questions that may incriminate you does look like you had a role in this entire situation. And I think it's naive to say, well, maybe Kelsey just didn't want to be an accessory to a crime or get charged with assault since she did beat up Meg or anything like that. And of course, yes, but she was never a defendant nor a suspect in this case. Megan never really said anything about Kelsey attacking her. All of Meg's energy has been towards Tory, so it does seem fishy to me that Kelsey would ask for immunity just to testify in this case. Maybe she was just protecting herself from being involved in this case whatsoever. She's moved on, she has a young child, and clearly she's not going to be cool with either one of them because of what they did to her. Like I said, she is the victim of the overall situation, but I think it would have made more sense for her to either testify just to testify or just not testify at all. Adding terms and conditions to your testimony is just weird, and I think it might come back to hurt her. Moving on to Tory. Tory did not testify at all to defend himself, and I think that actually hurt Tory because if he was prepped to give testimony, I think he could have provided the reasonable doubt that the jury was looking for. And that's the hard thing with me on the defense end of the trial. All you're trying to do is prove to the prosecutors that what is being alleged didn't happen or didn't happen in the way that is being presented. In the comments, somebody who is a legal expert can tell me why he didn't testify, because I guess it's because he didn't want to incriminate himself. However, leaving his faith in the hands of the jury, which was 7 women and 5 men, that's just very risky. I would have had to say something. I mean, obviously he doesn't want to give room for further incrimination, but I still feel like this allowed the narrative to be hearsay until it wasn't. When you're already a felon, you're on thin ice, and many of his antics did not help him along the way. How many people have spoken on Tory Lanez being violent, angry, and unapologetically aggressive? Selena Powell, August Alsina, and even Travis Scott. Like, this man is a repeat offender, but somehow people drew the line at Meg Thee Stallion's claim of him shooting her. I find that to be crazy. Now, just a comprehensive outlook on all 3 people, I hope they all learned a huge lesson from all of this. Like, for real. For Kelsey, you have to watch who you call a friend. For Megan, be a better friend and control your liquor. And Tory, his aggression and lack of emotional self-control has cost him in so many ways and so many times. I also think for Tory, this is a lesson to him and all men who like to swing their nuts like orangutan titties, that y'all should not penetrate every pretty pink pulsing, piping hot punishing, put it on a pedestal pussy. Like, as a man, don't ever penetrate 2 friends when you know it's malicious intent behind it. You're gonna end up in some mess, and no, it doesn't make you look like the man. It makes you look like a shit starter, and shit started and now shit has ended. And who took the biggest L? Tory, the man. I think for all 3 of them, I'm not going to say that nobody is a victim, but I do think they all did some type of wrong. And the consequence is massive for everybody because friendships have been lost, freedom has been lost, reputation and respect has been lost. It's just a loss all over. Moving on, I want to address the portion about Meg's sexual history. I think it's disingenuous to say that judging her sexual history is irrelevant to the case. It's definitely irrelevant to her being a victim of a violent crime, but I think it does kind of pull together how this whole thing even ever happens. I think people want women and their sexual freedoms to be seen in the same light as a man's, but I tell y'all all the time on this channel that in reality, it's never going to be looked at that way. Women can sleep with as many men as they want, but the label that you're going to get is not that you're a hot girl who was just having fun, or somebody who is enjoying their time, or somebody who's just going through a phase. You're going to get labeled as a hoe or easy. And because of that, Meg suffered the idea of all of her claims to being a victim in this case somehow being dismissed by public opinion because of what she promotes. She promotes sex, how good her sex is, what she requires for sex, and how nonchalantly she approaches sex. But in real life, it's because of the same reason that led her to this incident. Even if Tory didn't shoot the gun and the bullet didn't ricochet onto Megan's feet, there still would have been an argument regardless because of Megan's actions. And the argument was because this was not the first time that Meg had been messing around sexually with one of Kelsey's boyfriends or situationships or whatever. This is not the first time that Megan's sexual tendencies caused a rift in her reputation or her actions. It makes Meg look really bad, like a big bozo that you're promoting this culture in your music and then practicing this sexual malice in real life and exchanging energies with all of these different men who do not respect you and do not belong to you. And then those same actions led your friend to being hurt in the process. I mean, there are thousands of men, even hundreds of men in the industry that find Meg attractive or want to have sexual relations to her or can sexually actually please her, but why choose the ones that your friend is dealing with? Like, do you really think Kelsey would have cared if she was with Tom, Dick, or Harry? No. But when you're with Tory, the baby, and whomever, after she was, yes, your sexual history is going to get brought up into question because your character has to be analyzed from that viewpoint. And because the situation had a lot of emotions tied to it, her friend subsequently was angered by the revelation of her actions. And you can't solely blame Meg, definitely have to blame Tory, because it's not like he was oblivious to the fact that he was messing with a girl and her homegirl. But if you ask me, Meg owed her friend way more loyalty than Tory did. Like, as a woman, we're not supposed to be fighting over pulsing, piping penis, especially not if we're real friends. And I think defining how many times this has happened between Kelsey and Meg, and the pattern that Meg showed towards her friend, was relevant in the sense that it created the reason for the motive behind this entire incident. The last thing I wanted to hit on was what I think actually happened. I think that alcohol definitely skewed everyone's judgment. Then the shock that came from the revelation that they were both dealing with the same man created the aggravation, and then that's when the violence ensued. Like I stated earlier, the driver, Tory, and Kelsey were basically fighting Meg, and I'm not sure why Tory was when he was wrong too, but they said that Meg did offend his musical capabilities and his career. And Meg was probably throwing low blows because the dude literally just outed her out of spite for whatever Meg said to him. Or it could have been the other way around. Tory revealed that he was smashing both of them, and then Meg started insulting his musical talents. Either way, I believe that the shocking revelation mixed with the alcohol led to the violence. Kelsey was fed up with what was the umpteenth time that Meg snaked her over some penis. They got to rumbling. Tory and the driver tried to stop it. Then they essentially all were against Meg. Tory realized that he was too short to break up a fight between two women who were closer to 6 foot, then shot the gun up in the air, recklessly trying to end the fight. The bullets came down, ricocheted, and hit Megan's foot, and that's how we got here. I think that's what makes the most sense to me. I mean, initially when I talked about this 2 years ago, I said that Tory shot Meg. Who lies about being shot, especially when the hospital records prove that there were bullet fragments in her foot? And I feel like the public opinion shouldn't have been that they didn't believe Meg. The public opinion should have raised the question of who did it and what were the circumstances. It's clear that she was injured in this entire thing, but due to the circumstances leading up to it, of course it's going to make Megan look like a bad person, because essentially she caused her own downfall being a bad friend and not being able to control her liquor. I think the Protect Black Women campaign is great, and I don't think anybody should be absolved from it if they are genuinely in need of that type of support. And I do think Meg fell into that category, but I also think that she abused it in a sense where she wanted protection but also expected immunity from the public of being questioned for why people were issuing that protection, because there was so many things that were very unclear. I mean, I think initially a lot of people were on her side, and then she was the one who caused the pendulum to swing a little bit, because she was lying and then created doubt, and then also not being educated enough to shut the hell up. I don't know why people talk so much, and I don't even think people wanted to believe Tory. They just subsequently ended up having to defend Tory because of the inconsistencies that were put out by Meg. I wish when this happened, either she would have stayed quiet and pursued it legally, which would have been in her best interest, because then it wouldn't have been so polluted and convoluted with conspiracy theories, diss records, lies, and other random allegations that had everyone spinning. Nonetheless, I am finally happy that this is over and that everybody can have some type of closure to the situation. I'm pretty sure Tory Lanez and his team is going to try to get him an appeal, but unfortunately for Tory, he is a felon, and felon forgiveness is not really a thing, especially when you're an immigrant and not a citizen of the United States. I bet all of them wish that this didn't happen, and I hope everybody learned a big lesson, including other celebrities. I mean, how many times has drugs or alcohol caused issues for celebrities and led to the downfall of them in a circumstance that they had to go through or just do so much to have to get out of? This was not necessarily the modern day OJ case, but I do think that this was this generation's celebrity criminal trial that we've been tuned into for years and will definitely go down in history for years to come. If anything, I hope all of these people are seeking therapy, because from the outside looking in, it seems like everyone can just move on with their life, but this entire case has very permanent repercussions for everyone involved, even though the case is now closed. So that is it for this video. I hope you all enjoyed. Please let me know your commentary on my commentary down below. What do you think? What do you know? Let me know. If you haven't already, go stream my song Ballin'. It is out on all platforms. Don't forget to follow me on all of my social media networks, and I will see y'all in my next video. Bye, y'all.
I'ma call him when I need some money. I ain't tryna wait. Yeah, mansion in the motherland, bitch. Leave it by the gate. Call my favorite cousins up. They round the way and on the way. Had to come to auntie house, cause last time I did 20K. Yo. They don't know who they messing with. I be where the blessings is, my pockets never deficit. You can't touch all this excellence, you gon' need a prerequisite. You gon' need some relevance, so cut it OT Genesis. Pack in the mail from my boys in Abuja.